All right. So earlier in the week, Brad Stevens, he doesn't always have a lot of press availability, but decided that this week was the time that he was able to meet with the media and spoke with them, and was asked a lot about a topic that we've covered quite a bit here, which was trades and the trade deadline coming up here now, just about a month away, February 8th, potentially by the time you listen to this is exactly a month away. And one of the things that he said is, yeah, a large wing, a reserve large wing would be great. We have limited resources. He was very transparent, which I thought was very refreshing. We're very limited with resources. We have the TPE. There's not much that we're going to be able to do, but of course we're going to be kind of looking around to see how we can always upgrade this roster. And one part of this Indiana game that really stood out, and this guy has actually stood out for maybe the last couple weeks or so, is Oshae Brissett. Is that maybe Oshae Brissett is the answer to this quote unquote large wing hole that the Celtics are looking to fill. And last night, you did a breakdown on this basically either live or right after the game, where you have a thread of all these different plays of Oshae Brissett. What have you seen from Oshae Brissett over the last few games, and especially last night?
Well, the big thing that stands out, and I talked about this in my thread, is with Brissett, he knows why he's on the floor. Right.
Yeah.
He has no delusions about who he is as a player. He's going to be someone that's bringing energy, that's corner crashing on the offensive glass, and is also just the first to the ball, whether it's diving on the floor, as we saw one of the first plays he was in the game a couple nights ago. And then this play that I have on the screen here, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, this is in the fourth quarter where Brissett ended up playing a majority of the fourth quarter because Derek White was in foul trouble, and Joe Mazzulla liked the energy he was bringing, the size that he was bringing. He could have kept Peyton Pritchard in the game like he did against the Thunder, but instead he kept Brissett in the game. And with about 7 minutes, 50 seconds left in the game, Brissett has this great rebound where he's on strong side corner. And as Halliburton's coming off the pick and roll, Horford's in drop, Derek White blocks Halliburton's shot. This is that great block that Derek White had. And you just see Brissett is the first person, like his instincts to go get the ball once it's blocked. He's the first person to move towards the ball, and he just goes and attacks it and immediately gives it up to somebody else that is going to make a better decision as we get into transition, gets the ball, gives it to Horford right away, and then we start the fast break, right? Those types of little plays, those defensive instincts and those rebounding instincts that he has, I think are an elite skill set, right? And we talked about, I think we saw this against the Heat early in the season. I tweeted out from my @MiniMinnow account, I think it was like 2 or 3 days before the Thunder game, where I shouted out Brissett and I said, I really hope he gets an opportunity to play against the Thunder, because I do think that his size, that big wing that Brad Stevens alluded to after the Thunder game, I think Brissett is the best internal option for the Celtics. But if they don't want to give up any resources to go get a bigger wing, I think Brissett can fill that role and fill it well. On the screen here, I still have some more highlights from that thread that I posted from the @GreenEnvy Twitter account yesterday, just showcasing the corner crash, just showcasing the physicality that Brissett showed throughout the game last night. And it's just really great because he seems like a great guy as well. Seems like a really good locker room guy. Seems very coachable. And he's always has a smile on his face. So I think he's one of those vibes guy off the bench that is even turning Adam's mindset. Because I don't know if you saw this today, but Adam admitted that he was wrong, at least for now, on Oshae Brissett as to what he can bring to this roster. So, and Adam is probably the most anti-Brissett guy that I've heard. He just in general. Sure.
I think he made him his new Schroeder to start the season. That was kind of his flag. I will say, not to brag, first guy that was on the Oshae Brissett train on this podcast. Just gonna point that to myself here, but obviously within reason, right? Like I'm not gonna take too much of a victory lap on this. Mostly, it was what do we think between him and Lamar Stevens, and I've always kind of leaned Oshae Brissett. But I think what you said about him knowing specifically his role, and even when you think back to like when he was on Indiana, right? He was always a guy that kind of stood out to me when we played them. I would be lying to you if I would tune in and like go back to other games and be like, oh, let me go check out what Oshae Brissett's up to. But it's just one of those guys where as you look around the league, as you're playing this guy, it's like, man, that guy keeps making some plays, right? He keeps making plays. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, he can shoot. Oh, he's going to take you off the dribble. There wasn't something that necessarily said, just like that guy is always seemingly finding his way into the mix, and he's got 12 points and 5 rebounds when he plays the Celtics. And it was just something to keep note of. So when we signed him, I was like, okay, that's a guy that has, made the light bulb go off in my head before when we played him. And now getting to watch him, I think it's like you said, he knows his role. He comes in, and I think this is what we talked about a little bit. And I've been leaning into I don't think the Celtics need to make a move unless it falls in their lap right now. As long as they're healthy, I don't think unless a move falls into their lap, they necessarily need to feel pressured to go make any type of move. And Oshae Brissett is one of the reasons why, because I think depending on the matchup, like you said, whether it's the Heat or maybe the Magic might even be a matchup that I think he could have some valuable minutes in. He's going to be a guy that when he gets in, he knows exactly what he's there for and what he's supposed to do. And then we talked about this in the Steve Jones podcast where he was asking us about how we felt about Sam Hauser. And I feel great about Sam. But in the scenarios where Sam doesn't have a shot going or Sam gets hurt or whatever, if you needed to plug Oshae Brissett in for 75-80% of Sam Hauser's minutes in a condensed playoff rotation, I feel totally comfortable with what Oshae, even though it's a very drastically different skill set, what Oshae Brissett's going to give you. I feel very comfortable with putting him in there because I think obviously with him, I would, as much as Sam has held up as a defender, Oshae is a better defender. And Oshae is even though Sam crashes the glass from the weak side, Oshae is so aggressive in that. And
he's just a better athlete.
Just a better athlete. And I think of the offensive rebound he had, I can't remember if it was the third or fourth quarter, he had this offensive rebound where he just was not going to be denied, wrestled the ball away, throws it out to Tatum at the top of the key for a 3-pointer. And I was like, holy, that's a grown man ass rebound right there. And I think this is the play that you have. And rips it, throws it back out. And then I don't know if I can't remember if Tatum knocked that down or not, but that was a play right there that certainly stood out as this is the Oshae Brissett. Give me some minutes. That's at the top of the highlight reel.
Right. And to talk about that play, that was the last rebound that I have on the thread. One thing I really like about that, when you watch this play back, for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see it. Brissett, he cuts to the basket and he's reading the flight of the ball. He doesn't jump early, right? He sees that he's not going to be able to be the first guy to get the ball. So he's patient. He slides his feet, and then he sees that he can actually get the ball lower to the ground. And then he rips the ball away from, I think it was Obi Toppin there, and kicks the ball out. And as you said, right, the grown man strength that he has there, this is why I think Brissett could be, a real key piece in the playoffs against certain teams, as you just mentioned. Specifically, I think he's going to make a big impact against the Miami Heat. If we play the Miami Heat in the playoffs, I think Oshae Brissett is one of those guys that is going to match up really well with them because the Heat don't overwhelm you with size. They overwhelm you with execution and with like guys that play kind of above who they are. And like I said this in the thread, that if Brissett was on the Heat, I'd be terrified of him. He'd be one of those guys that would just absolutely piss me off because I'm like, God, just like block out Oshae Brissett.
Him and Haywood Highsmith would somehow win games 3 and 6 of that. I don't know how, but they would find a way to be like, yeah, we lost the series because Haywood Highsmith and Oshae Brissett went off.
Exactly. So I think that's the matchup where I think he's really going to pay dividends. Also against the Pacers, as we saw last night, he has the internal knowledge of how the Pacers do things. So I think that's an advantage in itself right there. But, just like the type of player that he is, I'm not sure that he's going to be able to be on the court against like a Philadelphia just because of the size of Embiid. That's when you kind of have to size up, probably go Cornet if we're going to 8-man rotation in the playoffs. Maybe it's Cornet, but maybe it's one, as you just mentioned, if Sam Hauser just doesn't have it, if like Tyrese Maxey is just cooking Sam Hauser anytime he's in the game, maybe Sam needs to take a seat and Brissett's in there and we figure out the rotations elsewhere and we keep shooting on the floor, not from the wing position, even though Brissett early in the season, I think probably the first 15 games or so, he had hit 1 3-pointer. He didn't play very frequently, but recently that 3-point shot is even starting to fall. He hit either 1 or 2 last night. So it was good to see Brissett also finding the distance from 3-point land. And if Brissett can continue to play like this, the Celtics do not need to make a move. They could probably just focus on either the guard or the big man rotation. But honestly, at this point, man, unless we're somehow getting Alex Caruso, I don't think we need to make a move. Like Brissett's doing his thing, Cornet and Queta doing their thing. Peyton Pritchard has figured out how to thrive in the second unit with this team. It still comes down to Game 7. Who are you going to trust? Who are the 7 guys that you're going to trust in a Game 7? And right now we have 6, and I don't know who the 7th guy is right now.
Yeah, I mean that, and the thing is, within a 7-game series, I think that 7th spot will reveal itself based on that matchup, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
I
a good
think,
point.
and I think that we have enough guys that by that point will know. To your point, is it Cornette because we need more size? Is it Hauser because he's shooting the ball well? Is it Peyton Pritchard? Is it, maybe it's Brissett? Like, I think out of the guys that we would have to choose from if we need to be like, hey, this is the final game, this is the matchup, this is the 7, maybe 8 guys we're rolling with, and that's it. Like, I think that will reveal itself. So I don't really have too much stress when it comes to that.